everybody. Welcome back to Great Northwest Weaponry. This is Thomas, and today we're taking a look at another British revolver. We have got before us a very early example of the Enfield No2 Mk1, often just called the Enfield Revolver. This is one of the more recent acquisitions in my collection, and it is also very closely related to the Webley Mark IV 38. Like the Mark IV 38, this is also a 38-200 or 38 Smith & Wesson chambered revolver. I'm definitely going to be linking the demo that we did of the Mark IV Webley in this video's description, as, again, they're very closely related, and the Webley will come up more throughout this video as the actual design of this started with Webley. But without getting any farther, let's go ahead and go into the gun room and talk Enfield revolver history. The story of the Enfield Revolver No2 Mk1 largely mirrors that of the Webley Mark IV 38. And we already mentioned this, but it mirrors it to such a degree that I'm not going to go over blow by blow the exact same information here, because if I were to go into depth on early production and the trial between Webley and Enfield in detail, this would wind up just being the same video as we did for the Mark IV 38, just me talking about it from Enfield's perspective. So I'm kind of going to speed run this first bit of information, but if you want more detail on everything that led up to World War II, check out the Mark IV 38 video. Again, it will be linked in this video's description. They are intrinsically related. One does not exist without the other in the form that we know them now. This is a very early production example of the Enfield revolver, actually. But again, quick speed run of early information. World War I ends, and shortly thereafter, Enfield begins production of the Mark VI revolver in 4.55 Webley, taking over the contract from Webley, and they continue producing it until it is determined that the British government wants a smaller cartridge, but they still want it to hit hard and do a lot of damage. So the 38-200 cartridge is developed. In the US, this is produced as 38 Smith & Wesson, but they're pretty much the same. The 38-200 is a slightly heavier bullet, and that was part of the intention of the design. Was it was meant to do what was called a keyhole. It's where the bullet will tumble and more or less hit sideways, causing a lot more damage than if it went in straight, in theory. Again, a lot of it can be boiled down to ballistics, and again, in theory, this might not always work. Like if you had your wallet in your front shirt pocket, it might be enough to stop a bullet tumbling at such an extreme angle, or at least to slow it down enough to make it non-lethal. That was a complaint of these 38s. But anyway, going forward, so the first design presented for the new cartridge was the Mark IV 38. When the Mark IV 38 was presented, the British government factory at RSAF Enfield just turned right around and released their own design, which was the one seen before us here. And Webley sued for £2,250. They were awarded £1,250, and Enfield kept on producing the No2 Mk1. The Webley was relegated to civilian sale only until World War II kicked off, and the British government decided that they might need both. So you will see wartime production Webleys. Mine is one such example. This is a first year of production Enfield No2, and this is truly a No2 Mk1. There are three primary variations. So the, again, true No2 Mk1, as seen here, would have a spurred hammer and these almost Western style wood grips. The No2 Mk1 Star, which is the more common variant that between the Star and the Mk1 Star. The Mk1 Star has a different style of grip that has these deep finger and thumb grooves, and they're typically made of plastic. Also, the spur on the hammer had been removed. These are often called a tanker model. That is kind of a misnomer, as it wasn't made specifically for tankers. It's just what most of them were. The examples with a spurred hammer numbered about 55,000 in total production from 1932 to 1938. This is a 1932 example. The design was officially adopted in 1931. Full production kicked off in 32. But again, to call the spurless hammer examples a tanker model is not really accurate. There was about 270,000 made of the Mark I Star and the Mark I Star. The true Mark I's only number about 55,000, for a total production run of about 325,000. They're produced until 1957. So, and that's specifically for the Enfield revolvers. We're not talking Webley numbers here. They did serve in tandem with the Webley and the Smith & Wesson Victory model, all three of which we have at this point. We'll be looking at the Victory model in the not too distant future. I'm quite excited about that one. I've been looking for one for a while, but that is your Lend-Lease American-made revolver that was made for the British. All three were used, and used in different situations too, but the most common and official frontline service revolver was a variation of what you see before us right here. So, pretty neat that I stumbled across a first-year example. The history of them, again, I think we've gone over what was not previously discussed here. For more detail on the earlier history of these two revolver designs, particularly we went into a lot more detail on the trial. Definitely check out the Mark IV 38 video. Meanwhile, we're going to transition to the tabletop and take a look at some markings here. As with all British military revolvers, this is absolutely peppered with the British broad arrow acceptance stamps. They're on virtually every piece of the gun. There's a series of proof marks and another broad arrow stamp on the top strap. Further proof markings in the cylinder. But a lot of what you're going to want to see for identification of your revolver is going to be right over here, right side of the frame, just behind the trigger. This one has the full Enfield crest with the 1932 date and the number 2 Mark I. Again, this is a 1932 example, seeing at the tip of my finger there. Later examples, sometimes this crest and the actual Enfield name would be done away with, particularly on the Mark I or the Mark I Star and the Mark I Star examples, of which would be marked as Mark I and then a little asterisk right at the top corner of the 1 or 2 asterisks. We didn't fully go over when they switched and what all of the switches were. So we'd mentioned that the hammer was bobbed off and the grip changed for the Mark I Star, which started production in 1938. They were further simplified in 1942. Basically, everything was made cheaper and quicker just for ease of production, but it was determined that these ones were more or less unsafe to use. So as soon as the war ended, they went back to the Mark I Star, and they kept producing those until 1957. Again, the true Mark I's were only made 1932 to 1938 and account for less than a quarter of the total production. One feature of all Enfield and Webley revolvers that doesn't always get enough attention is just how easy it is actually to extract the cylinder. So with an Enfield revolver, this large screw on the right side, you can do this with, I've got a screwdriver here that I'm going to use, but you can loosen this with a key or a coin. It's really meant to be easily done, but we're going to pull this out. And then when we flip over the revolver, you'll see there is this lever here. So pop open the gun and then push on that lever, and you can see it actuates this piece here, allowing the cylinder to be extracted quite easily. And then to put it back in, you want everything lined up straight. Push in, push back. Going to go ahead and lock it into place, and then reinsert your screw. And it takes a minute. So want to be careful not to overly distress the screw, as again, this is a very wide-mouthed screw head, and that is intentional. It was so that you could loosen or tighten it with any object you might have in your pocket, but it also means that it's if you put too much stress on it, you're likely to scar up the groove. Very cool revolver, one that I'm very happy to have this in my collection and to now, at this point, have the full lineup of World War II British revolvers. Let's go ahead and take this back out to the range and take a look at how to load and just put another 6 rounds through it. Loading this revolver is going to be much the same as any other of the break top British revolvers. You've got a latch on the side and push that all the way back until you see there the hammer pushes back a bit, and then just pop it all the way open. You do not want to slam these open and close. You can shear metal off of the top and the back strap there. I'm sure we mentioned that when we were at the tabletop as well, but it bears repeating. I've seen a lot of videos online of people just slamming their Webleys or Enfield revolvers open and closed, and it is a shame. So when you get back to there, push back all the way again, and then let it fall forward. This example is both single and double action, but as again we discussed earlier, many of them have a bobbed off hammer, so they can only effectively be fired in double action. It's a bit muggy out here. We're getting into the evening. I intentionally came out late to shoot this video so that I could avoid some of the heat. We've been having some comparatively extreme heat here in Oregon, but not too bad this evening. Still humid though. Target is about between 15 and 20 paces over there, as you can probably see in the camera. And we're going to do the first 3 single action, last 3 double action. Six for 6. No complaints. And again, when you open it, it pops all the bullets out, and it's just immensely satisfying. I think I've said that every time we've ever broke open the top of a British revolver on this channel so far, but it is true. If you haven't done it, 10 out of 10 would recommend. Anyway, thank you all for watching the video. Hope you enjoyed. It's been Thomas of Great Northwest Weaponry, and I'll see you next time.